Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Anything Joe's, a collaborative journey through the world of G.I. Joe. My name is Greg Engel.
And I'm Jaren Decker.
And we'll be your host today. Today on Anything Joe's, we're recapping the events and acquisitions of Kentuckiana 2021. Kentuckiana 2021, the convention that takes place literally in our backyard.
I mean, we could basically walk there if we really wanted to.
Well, I don't, and I wouldn't. I am extremely lazy. So going into Kentuckiana this year, I guess we learned a lot about the convention from last year's Kentuckiana and as well as a Winterfest. And Jaren, you had expressed interest in going to like what they call the Colonel's event or the preview event, which is like, I think it's like 3 times as much to get into, and it's like a 3 or 4 hour window the night before because it's only a 1-day event. And I was a little hesitant to do this because I thought, man, that's $30 I could spend on a whole other vehicle. And I'm here to publicly say that you were completely correct, because we got to see and like had access to so much stuff that simply would not be there on Saturday, to the point to where, I mean, like, it's like almost a completely other show. It has changed my feelings on it forever. I probably will never skip a preview event ever again because of it.
Oh, sorry, I'm tearing up a little bit. I'm not used to being right.
I'm going to edit all this out. So we decided to go to Kentuckiana that night, and I don't remember the exact hours. It was like 6 to 9, maybe. Does that sound right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So, and then obviously includes admission all day Saturday.
And a nice little lanyard with a name thing, or not an actual name, but a little badge on it.
Yeah, it makes you feel a little bit more official. So we got to the show. They had already been open for just a little bit by the time we got there. And it was hopping that night as well.
It was crazy, though. Like, people came ready to buy stuff.
Yeah, me included. I should also go ahead and say at the top of the show that I specifically bought a ton of stuff at this show. I'd been saving up for it for several months, and where I wasn't able to go to Joe Fest, I basically it was like a thermometer that was boiling to the top of just a need to purchase lots of G.I. Joe stuff. So if you're the type of listener that's like maybe not into the convention recap, or you're not even into recent acquisitions, this is it. We got no news. We're just going to kind of casually talk about the stuff we picked up and our thoughts. It's almost like a grab bag of vehicle discussion at the same time.
It's a lot of stuff, though. It's going to be very varied. It was to the point at certain points where it was like, we would go and load things into the truck and turn around, walk back in, and then immediately be like, all right, time to go back to the truck and load back up.
There was definitely a bit of I felt like Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind, where I'm calculating like when I want to buy something and when I want to take it back to the car and then come back and do it all over again, and juggling all the math in my head. And it was wild. So let's talk about the stuff that we had lined up beforehand, because before we'd even gotten into the door, we'd both already committed to buying something. We have, we mentioned Todd Henderson from Destro's Toy Den almost every episode. It seems like he really should be a paid sponsor. We're going to have Todd on the show at some point, because I am very interested in talking to him about kind of like the life of a vendor and his personal collection, which I know is amazing because I see stuff from it here and there that he shows me. And
Todd is just such a cool guy anyway. Just getting the chance to chat with him and hang out, it's a wonderful time.
So Todd had posted a picture on... Actually, I'm going to let you tell this story, because you're the one that swooped in like a vulture and was like, gimme.
I did. So one of the top things on my list of vehicles that I've wanted is a Tomahawk. I was on Facebook, saw that he had posted and was like, let's see what he's got. And he had basically posted a bunch of vehicles, and it was like, hey, here's the new stuff I just picked up. And I clicked on his name, clicked on message, and said, please bring that to Joe Fest. Or actually, I think I said, you better be bringing that Tomahawk to Joe Fest. He said, you want it? Gave me the price. I said, deal. He said, it's yours. It was that easy. It was great.
Trailing off of that, and I will revisit this at a later point, I don't have an original Tomahawk. I have the Eagle Hawk, which is the modern version.
Which is crazy, because I have a vintage Tomahawk.
Well, so... that, which we've discussed before, stuff that you get that I don't have, it makes me want to get it. I've done this multiple times already. You got an APC, I got an APC. You picked up a Rattler. I was like, I want a Rattler. I don't have an original Rattler. Anyway, I wanted a Tomahawk.
Did you pick up a Badger after I bought a Badger?
I know there are limitations, Jaren. Sorry, bud. So, and it was a combination of things. So anyway, you had wanted one, and you scoped one out, and I'm great. I'm happy for you. And I even said, like, I do want one, but I'm not going to get in the way of you getting one first. So when you scooped in and talked to Todd, and that's, no big deal. I got plenty of stuff on my list. It's no big deal. But simultaneously around that time that this was happening, G.I. Joeberg had just put out like a wonderful YouTube video where they're like, it's like encapsulating all the things that they love about the Tomahawk and how it's like they're one of the best vehicles ever. And it's like just like a top tier thing for them. And so that like doubled down on how much I wanted one. So going in, I was like, if I can find one also, I'm going to try to, strike a deal. But anyway, in that same picture that Todd had sent out of stuff that he recently picked up to bring to the show, there was a Sky Striker. So right before the show, I was like, man, I feel weird about buying something before I'm even there because I might regret committing to a purchase before I see what's available. I thought, nah, you know what? I'm going to talk to Todd and see what he's got on it because I do want an original Sky Striker. I've been refurbishing one for several months now. And again, I have a modern one. I've been thinking a lot about this in the last couple of weeks, but the reason I don't have so many original mold vehicles is because there's a very small window where the modern vehicles are, this might be controversial to say, but are better than the vintage vehicles on almost every level. The modern Sky Striker is amazing. The modern Eagle Hawk is a stunner. The modern Rattler, same. All those vehicles are almost exactly the same as the original molds, but with improvements where technology allows. So it has been hard for me to be like, I hate to back up and pay, a couple $100 here and there for stuff that I, kind of have superior versions of. But I have also hit a window where I'm like, I want everything vintage. And I'm at a phase in my collecting where vehicles is like something that I'm really trying to get caught up on because I'm way behind on vintage vehicles in general. Because I focused on figures for like a decade. It was my only primary goal was just get every figure, Greg. Doesn't have to be complete. Just see if you can get every single figure. And now that I've accomplished that goal, my secondary goal was, all right, now go back and see if you can complete some figures and go start looking at vehicles that you have missed over the years. Okay, anyway, sorry. That's a long detour to say. Todd had pictured an original Sky Striker, and right before we went, I'm talking like maybe just a couple days, I thought, man, I'm going to hit him up and see, just how much he's asking for it or whatever. And to my surprise, Todd was like, yeah, I wasn't going to bring this. And I was like, no, you have to bring it. How much do you want for it? We struck a deal. Todd gave me a great price on it, and it is complete minus parachutes. I should clarify that everybody always asks first when I say complete. Oh, does it have the parachutes? It doesn't because, how many people do? I guess only the hardcore, but you could save a literal fortune if you just allow your mind to forego some tiny pieces of plastic or whatever that crap was made out of that my cats would eat in its entirety the second I left it out on the floor. But it has the landing gear and it has the little things that cover the landing gear, stuff that is, hard to find on a Sky Striker. And the stickers on it or decals on it are pretty well done. Just in general, it's a very good condition Sky Striker for its age. So I struck a deal with Todd. I said, I want this, bring it, and we'll add it to whatever else I get. So back to our real-time storytelling. We had both already purchased pretty expensive vehicles going into the event. And so I had to accommodate for that when I started looking around, thinking, all right, first of all, you're not looking for this anymore because you have one lined up. And second of all, you need to deduct that money from what you have to spend because, you're committed to buying it. I would never back out on a deal, period. So before we get further into the stuff that we bought, let's talk about the convention overall. If you're not familiar with Kentuckiana, you didn't listen to our last episode, you've never been to one or a Winterfest, it is a 3-room event that takes place at is it a Hilton Garden and Inn, I think?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Really kind of an unusual place for a convention center in Louisville, Kentucky, because there are so many like expo centers and convention centers that it could be hosted at. But they've been doing it like this for almost 10 years now. And I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it, because I mean, it still draws in pretty significantly large crowds. Everybody seems to do really well. They always sell out to some degree. And so you have these three separate kind of smallish rooms that are packed to the gills with different vendors, and they're not really like organized in any specific way. And what I mean by that is Kentuckiana is predominantly built as a 12-inch G.I. Joe show. I think I can say with some level of confidence that there are few, if any, bigger shows dedicated to 12-inch G.I. Joes out there, because it's everywhere to the degree that I never see it represented like this. People that bring custom made weapons, they have a show exclusive like set that has a story element to it. Like, it's amazing. If I was really into 12-inch shows, this is the show to go to for sure. I don't know a lot about 12-inch shows. I think we've covered this in pretty great detail. It's one area that I'm severely lacking in, but it is loaded to the gills with stuff. And to a certain degree, it helps because I see that stuff, and while I love the novelty of it, I'm not investing in it. So I'm like, okay, well, these guys I don't have to worry about having more stuff to look through. Essentially, I can focus on the 3 3/4 stuff, and I certainly do not want to undersell that, because the 3 3/4 stuff is out in spades. I mean, you see stuff that you just don't see or very rarely see at conventions. And I'm not saying you can find everything you want there, but man, did I find a lot of good stuff. The regular admission, it's just a one-day show if you don't count the preview event. It takes place on Saturday from I think it's like 9 a.m. for early bird, 10 a.m. general admission to about 4 p.m. that day. So it's not a very long show, and it certainly doesn't compare to something like Joe Fest, for example, which is a huge room with tons and tons of vendors. But it's a good showing, and has, for the 3 or 4 years that I've been going to it, including Winterfest, it's never disappointed me. I always see great deals and great stuff, and stuff that I would not expect to see in person, period. So, but am I leaving anything out? Do you think that's a pretty accurate picture of the show?
No, I would say that's the very good. I mean, it is a very weird layout because it is in a Hilton Garden Inn, so it's in 3 separate rooms. But they do a good job of making sure you know where you're going, and like having all kinds of like really cool stuff laid out, and it's it's super clean, it's organized, it's pretty well done.
Yeah, it's a good, like I said, it's a well-structured show. I think they've learned a lot over the years about what works and what doesn't. I said this in the other Kentuckiana episode, and I will say it again. This show has room to grow and develop into something stronger. And what I mean by that is, could definitely move to an expo center. They could have almost certainly more vendors, I feel like, or at least spread, like give the ones that are there more room. I can't think of any good reason why they will not bring a guest in, other than they are unwilling to pay the money for it. And I mean, if that's your personal discretion, that's fine. But man, what a big deal it would be for me to bring in just one comic book writer or artist or one voice actor from the cartoon. Give me something, dude. Like, I wish that they would really consider that. And to this day, I think it's like a big opportunity for them that they would bring in more people. And I would prioritize that almost. If you brought in somebody that voiced the original cartoon that I haven't met, because I collect those signatures on the DVD box set, it would be my top priority. It's my top priority at any show that's within traveling distance, to try to meet these people, they're before they stop doing conventions, because they're all getting older. Larry himself, who is really scaled back and will go nowhere during pandemic era, doesn't do shows much anymore either. And while I've been fortunate to meet Larry on many occasions, I will always have something for Larry to sign, or to just interact with him in general. He does sketches that are very affordable, and he has difficulty with his hands. He has I don't think it's arthritis, but he has difficulty using a pen and pencil nowadays. So when he does sketching, it is I imagine, pretty painful for him. So that's something else that will not be available, I feel like, in the coming years. And I want to scoop that stuff up as much as I can. Anyway, all right, I'm diverging again. But Kentuckiana could use a guest period. I wish they would think about it and work on that for the future. In terms of the development of the show, I do feel like it could grow even larger because people do travel from significantly, from pretty far out of state to come to this show based on, people that we interacted with.
Yeah, I mean, I heard of people from a couple, quite a distance away coming to the show.
All right, so that's the idea of Kentuckiana. If you have never gone to Kentuckiana and it's within traveling distance for you, it's absolutely worth it. It's just a short day trip, but this especially probably had some of the best deals on vehicles that I've ever seen. So let's go ahead and launch into the stuff that we picked up because that is the bulk of the show. Is just us talking about things. But I want to also
so much.
I want to talk about a little bit at length about the vehicles in general. Now, the way that I made this list is, to the best of my knowledge, I made it based on vendors that I picked it up from because I could not remember what I bought like in a chronological order. And if I might accidentally accredit something to somebody that I got from somebody else, but I did the best I could based on what I could remember. So when we had finished the show Friday night, and we closed the doors essentially, and we met Jason Morrell from Order of Battle, who is someone that we've been, friends with for a little bit now. Maybe one of the only people I can truly say friend of the show. And we were very excited to talk to him and hang out with him and his son A. And so we hung out with him for a really good portion of the show. And when it closed down on Friday night, they were kind enough to basically say, hey, a lot of the vendors are going to kind of hang out in the lobby because they're staying here in the hotel, obviously. And so they were basically you can, tag along, I guess is the best terminology for it. So we had a unique opportunity Friday night after they kicked us out of the show, essentially, where we hung around at the little lobby bar, and we met a bunch of people that were there. We met people that had traveled up with Todd, and we met a lot of vendors that we hadn't done a lot of business with at that time, and just genuinely people just talking about G.I. Joe, and somebody showed up with a little random box of accessories. This young kid had a bunch of stuff, and they were going through it, and there was there's a mask cap for you. It says flag in there, and people were freaking out over that. There were some there's a gentleman there named Dave, whose last name eludes me, brought in these majestic dioramas of this swamp scenes that had a classified scale Crocmaster. I don't know why I didn't take pictures of that stuff because was very awe-inspiring stuff that he collected kind of in nearby territory to him, and built these kind of authentic looking swamp scenes. And we saw we met a gentleman named Greg Cookart, who we will affectionately refer to as Greg number 2 because I am Greg number 1, and he runs a vendor site called Lost and Found Toys, and I'll get to some stuff that I bought from him that was also really good deals. And he's a really great guy. I genuinely enjoyed interacting with him and talking to him. So anyway, Friday night was a great, I felt accepted in the social circle that we don't normally get to interact with, and we met a lot of great guys. We had a really good time, and it also gave us a chance to extend our stay basically there, or we weren't really tight for time, and we just had a blast. All those guys were just amazing, and it was so much fun. I can't really put a limitation on how much fun it was to hang out with other G.I. Joe collectors, something that I don't get to do a whole lot. So it was a blast, and I appreciate every one of those people so tremendously. They were all real cool and very friendly, and it was just a great time overall.
Yeah, I just want to kind of touch on the kid that brought the box of stuff to trade. His name is Reed. His dad, Josh, and him were both kind of doing the same thing. We were hey, let's just hang out. And they were super cool. It was really cool getting to see Dad and his son, and kind of getting into Joe and really starting collecting the classified line, and just seeing all this cool stuff and seeing their dynamic, and then seeing the vendors and how they reacted, which always seeing it with A from Order of Battle, how these vendors really love seeing kids and interacting with them in their hobby that they care so much about. So seeing them interact with Reed was also really cool. I mean, they were all really nice. They were making deals, swaps, things like that. It was so cool. Those guys are great. Hope they're doing well. If you guys are listening, shout out to you guys because it was great meeting you. And then also Jason and A were a pleasure to hang out with. We talked with them a whole lot. And then lastly, Terry Ruin, Action Media Reviews. He had he did the music for Strike Force Alpha, the Kickstarter, which was just funded. So really cool seeing him kind of be into and putting into creating something new. It was pretty cool.
Right. So let's get into the goodies. So
enough talking about people. Let's talk about toys.
So I've listed this by vendor because I didn't know how else to do it. I'm going to start with Greg number 2.
Greg Prime?
No, I'm Greg Prime. He's Greg Omega. Even though that sounds cooler. Yeah. So Greg runs a site called Lost and Found Toys, and he had set up a pretty good little booth. And I do want to talk. Let me talk about what I got, and then I'm going to talk about his setup on spare parts, which I think is probably the best I've ever seen any vendor have ever. So Greg had a bunch of vehicles that I needed, both small and large. And the first thing that I saw when I was there was he had a Rattler. I don't have an original Rattler. Most of the primary vehicles, like the heavy hitters from the original run, I don't have, again, because I said I have modern versions of them. So for at least the last 10 years, I've just been kind of like, I got a version that's in better shape. Why do I need one? And then now suddenly something has clicked in my brain and I want them. I'm going to say Jaren is the reason that he has a Rattler. It's complete, has a Wild Weasel, has the battle damage plates. It's in pretty good shape. It's not, it needs a little love. Specifically, I'll say that when I got home, I found that the landing gear wouldn't descend, and I'm not critiquing Greg on this because these are really common issues with vehicles and probably aren't deal breakers for most people. The landing gear on this Rattler won't come out without what I would suggest is an unadvised amount of force. I did try to get them open, and I even hit a little window where I was like, these are coming out no matter what. And then I finally was like, I got to back off because what is coming right around the door. Like I could start to see the strain on the plastic. So I researched it. I was like, is this a common problem? Is there a common fix? And the answer is no. If you're out there and you know how to get a Rattler landing gear to come out without destroying the parts, I'd love to hear it, because that's typically how I like to display my pieces, is like in a landing spot. Because I can't make them look like they're flying otherwise. So anyway, vehicle's in good shape. It needs a cleaning, no big deal. That's kind of my MO right now. I've been really enjoying restoring and cleaning vehicles, and but otherwise it's complete. I've never had a complete Rattler. Didn't have one as a kid, and it's it's basically the peak of Cobra vehicles, period. That and the His Tank, you know what I mean? They're like the staples of them all. So I was immediately like, I want this. It's a fair price, and maybe I can make it at even a fairer price if I pick up some other stuff. So I started looking at some of the smaller vehicles he had scattered around, and I also picked up a AGP, which, if you're not familiar with, is this like little pod vehicle that belongs to the Iron Grenadiers. Something else that I'd never had as a kid, and that's kind of stuff that's on my checklist, is stuff that I have a lot of vehicles in my collection that are incomplete, might not even be strong enough of a word. Stuff that I've had as a kid that has just not stood the test of time because I played with it as a child. So you pull out a lot of pieces that are just generally need more work than they're worth. They are borderline shells at this point. So instead of leaning into that stuff, I am trying to lean into stuff that I've never had. And the AGP qualifies for that. And the AGP is a small vehicle. It was very cheap. No big deal. So I was like, all right, I want this. I'm not seeing a lot of these here. This is a great price. Put that in there as well. And then the other thing I got was a Swamp Fire, which is a vehicle that I have never had and I love. Is featured in my mind in the G.I. Joe movie a little bit, and is a Dreadnought vehicle, which is a big deal for me because I'm a big Dreadnoughts guy. And the Swamp Fire's also got a great, simple but cool gimmick, like the way that the propeller blades extend, which I think has lengthened the lifespan of what typically becomes problematic on propellers. Like if you look at a Tomahawk, all the blades are drooping. Even my Eagle Hawk, the propeller blades are like really sagging. But because this kind of retracts and solidifies, the Swamp Fire essentially looks perfect. Like it looks just like it should, and it was complete. So I was like, all right, I want this as well. So I'm kind of combining I made 2 trips to Lost and Found, and because Friday night, after I'd already bought all of these things I just mentioned from him, Todd was like, "Hey, Greg, Greg number one. I hear you were looking for a tomahawk also because we had had a conversation when Jaren had claimed the first one." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, Greg number two, he's got one." And Greg number two was like, "Yeah, I've got one. It's I think it was in my garage or something, but because it wasn't out on display because I would have seen it." And I said, "Okay, well, I'm interested in it." And so cut to Saturday, I revisit Greg's booth, and sure enough, he's got a tomahawk. Now I want to be clear, it doesn't look as good as Jaren's. If Jaren wasn't going to beat me to that conversation, Jaren's tomahawk is in better shape. But it's worth noting that with this tomahawk is really only got two problems with it. The first problem is that it is missing the tow cable underneath, which I feel like is a pretty easy fix. And when Greg was showing it to me, the canopy has a break in it somewhere. I haven't investigated it fully, but I don't think it's a shell issue. I think it's a canopy issue. I just need to get a replacement canopy. And to Greg's credit, Greg was immediately like, "All right, I'm going to knock off like $20 off of what we agreed on," because that's the kind of dude that Greg is. He's got good business acumen. Like, Greg is a stand-up guy, and he stands by his product, and he's a good dude.
And Greg's wife Natalie was also there to put up with everyone's shenanigans of Greg 1, Greg 2. Prime, back and forth. They were both great.
Also, Greg went through the trouble of, like, he found the lift ticket and he found the file card to include with it, which is, again, above and beyond. He could have easily suckered me in for $100 with none of that stuff. So I was like, that's fine. I'll use the money that I'm saving and I'll pay to replace that canopy. Like, I'm working on getting stuff up and running. No big deal. Like, I'm still in on it. I wanted one very badly. So I also picked up a Persuader, which I guess I had overlooked or maybe just thought I wasn't ready to commit to at that time. And then I want to talk about Greg, the way Greg organizes his spare parts. So along the wall, basically next to Greg's booth,
it's basically a whole nother booth.
It really is.
It was so big and it was so organized.
So he has all these plastic tubs, and on the end of every tub is the name of something, a vehicle. It might say play sets or whatever. And in that plastic tub is nothing but parts for that vehicle. This is a brilliant idea, but obviously takes up a lot of room and is a time suck. Like, there's a lot undertaking to organize something like that. Even somebody that knows every single part that they encounter is going to have difficulty sorting it into like appropriate piles. Greg also has like shells and stuff for sale if you're looking for a beater to either repair or strip down yourself. I didn't really get into all that, but I did see some people picking out some pretty choice stuff. So anyway, at the end of that, I was like, we had plenty of time this weekend, which was great because I was able to, like, I don't normally do parts pieces. I either can't remember what I need or we're just too stuck for time. But we had the time. So I was like, well, let me see what's on this wall. All right. So Greg's got some heavy hitting stuff on this wall. Find a bin that says Sky Striker. So I'm like, well, okay, I am restoring a Sky Striker. Let me see if he's got anything that will actually be valuable to me. Boy, did he. He had both rear wings. I don't know how to explain it, but on this, let me talk a little bit about my Sky Striker restoration. If you follow us on social media, it's Anything Joe's Pod on Twitter and Instagram. I've been doing a restoration of a Sky Striker shell that I bought. And basically, I bought a shell maybe like 8 years ago off of a dude who was like, this is a yellowed Sky Striker. It has almost nothing. And I thought, well, I don't have a Sky Striker. I'll take it. Thinking, I don't know what I was thinking, honestly. I guess I thought I would rebuild it or something. Anyway, here we are almost a decade later. And so I had also never done the retrobright procedure, which, if you're not familiar with, is a chemical treatment that you do using UV lights and a chemical for bleaching out hair. And I think I've actually talked about this on the show before, but it causes yellow it makes your vehicles white again for an indeterminate amount of time. There's some disagreement on how long it could potentially last. But in the interest of science and exploration, I wanted to try it to see if I could do it for future usage. And you can find those images. Actually, we posted them pretty recently on the Instagram. I did the retrobright procedure. I stripped this shell down, I cleaned it up, and it turned out pretty great. Like, I was extremely happy with it. And there was a gentleman, I think his name was Michael Logan. I apologize if that's incorrect, but I posted a thing on social media. He hooked me up with a canopy and one other piece some of the missiles. So I had started to make progress on it. All right, so back to the convention. Greg's got things that says Sky Striker. I open it up. I'm like, well, maybe he's got something I need. And sure enough, he has the 2 rear wings on the Sky Striker. Not the big wings, but the, like, I don't know what those are called, like the guidance wings, like where they have the actual Sky Striker logo on them. And these are defining parts of the Sky Striker, in my opinion. If you don't have anything else on your Sky Striker but these wings, it still looks like a Sky Striker. But if you're missing these 2 wings, it looks like trash, frankly. And he had he had both of them, and I was like, oh my god, I absolutely want these. Like, this is a big deal for me. And I picked up a missile, and I was able to get 1 seat for the canopy, or for the like cockpit. So I immediately was like, I'm buying these. In addition to that, he had something else that was a big deal for me, and that is he had both of the missile launchers for the Whale. On my Whale, which is still a work in progress but has come a long way, both of my missile launchers on those racks, the tabs are broken off. I can only assume that's an extremely common problem with these, because those tabs are very fragile and they're kind of self-suspending on these little like L-shaped hooks on the Whale. Well, he had 2 of those unbroken, and I was like, holy crap, these are 2 big. I mean, it was short of finding like the vanes for the back of the propellers on the Whale. It was like a pretty high priority item for me. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. He had tons and tons of plastic tubs. Like, if I had better stock of what I needed, I probably could have cleaned up. But still, finding this stuff was a huge deal, to the point to where I took that Sky Striker stuff home. I repaired, like, I put those wings on and was immediately like, okay, this is ready for repro stickers now. It looks like a Sky Striker. So I had picked up a set of repro stickers from toyhacks.com months ago, like in anticipation of this. And when I did this, I was finally like, all right, it's ready. And sure enough, it's done. I mean, like, it's reaching a point of completion that's extremely satisfying to me. It looks like a Sky Striker. It's on my flag. Like, it's beside the one that I got from Todd, and they are not, I won't say you can't tell which is which, but they both can enjoy the same company and it not look weird. So anyway, I got all that stuff from Lost and Found Toys, and kudos to Greg for a great transaction, a great interaction, a good dude. Probably the one guy I met there that I was the most like, this guy, I made me make friend this weekend. His name also Greg. Good times. Do you want to step in and talk a little bit about something you got? Because I just talked a whole lot about one vendor.
You sure did. I can touch on what I got at Greg's, because I didn't get nearly as much at Greg's. Mostly just because, like, the things that he had that I would have picked up were things I had already picked up. And I did end up getting some figures from him. Got some, like, newer, modern Cobra Troopers and Vipers. Got, like, 8 figures, I think. Nothing crazy, but he gave me like a really good deal on them, so I was pretty ecstatic to buy those. And then I got a couple parts. I got a wing for my Sky Striker, because mine was just a little loose. So I was like, nope, don't want that. I need it to be nice. So I bought a wing, and it fit really well.
I forgot that you had picked that up. I'm glad that worked out for you. You had 3 wings for a Sky Striker. That's crazy to me. If I went on eBay and tried to buy a wing for a Sky Striker, it would cost me a literal fortune. Like, it's not a joke how expensive those things are.
Yeah, without being there, we can't state enough how amazing his setup was. His booth was great. He had him, his wife, and I believe they had another person there, or maybe that was just someone who kind of came and helped a little bit. But, like, it was great. Like, they were very kind. They were really good about working deals. You know, if you got multiple things, they were like, let's see what we can do. They gave a kid a couple toys. Like, the kid was playing, and they were just like, you know what? Here you go. Like, you know, have it because you're cute. And, yeah. So, it was really cool to see them and see how they interacted and how they ran their business, because they really were running it, like, very well. Their business acumen was great. Like, they had planned ahead. You could tell, like, it was organized, clean, everything was labeled and put together. It was great.
Yeah, it was like, if more people organized their parts like that, I would make more of an effort to catalog what I'm looking for, because it was so easy to go through. I've seen people that don't put any organization into their parts at all, so you're just randomly looking through stuff. And I've seen people that organize their parts by, like, color, which there's no way. Like, I could not organize my stuff. I can't look through stuff like that. I feel like you're literally just, like, randomly searching for a needle in a haystack when you have very specific needs. And I get it. If I was a vendor, I wouldn't want to do it either. It's just a credit to what a good vendor Greg is that he took the time to sort all that stuff. And hopefully that, paid dividends. At the very least, he got money from me, but I'm sure lots of other people were digging through that stuff. It's a great way to do business.
Yeah, I really hope that he's coming back for the Winterfest, which hopefully he should, because he didn't live that too far away from it. But if he does, if I know he's coming, I'm going to go through and catalog some of the parts that I need and going and really making sure to get some from him.
All right, so I'm going to move on to the next vendor that I saw that I had to do business with. I will never in a million years be able to remember this guy's name. All I know is that he doesn't run a shop. He said he sells a lot of stuff exclusively through Mercari, and he had a lot of cool kind of like outline G.I. Joe stuff. But the thing that caught my eye is that he had a brawler. So the G.I. Joe brawler, which came out in 1991, it's like the start of the kind of like where the neon era is kind of a weird little tank that has a bunch of little bombs and stuff on it. And this dude had one that was complete. It was probably like $20 less than every other one there. And I can't specifically explain why I kept eyeballing it, other than it's a medium-sized vehicle. And I kept seeing it. I kept thinking, man, this is not something that I see a whole lot, and I don't have it. And it wasn't unfairly priced at these buys, but when you see it the same price at 4 or 5 vendors, and then you see somebody that's got it for $20 less, you're like, okay, well, this is a deal, clearly, because I know what the going rate is for. So I was like, all right, same deal. I'm going to try to get several things and work out a deal with this guy. And this guy had lots of stuff, like in the small to medium range, that were priced at like in the $15 to $20 price point. So I thought, I think I'm going to just like clean up with this guy. So
you sure did.
So let me list all the stuff that I picked up from this dude. So I was like, I want this brawler. He had an original Fang minus the roll bar, which I think is also a very commonly broken thing. But I don't have an original Fang. I just have lots of modern reproductions of them. He had the bomb disposal thingy, which I also didn't have. Another small, kind of early to mid 80s vehicle that I missed out on. And I'm trying to scoop all that stuff up as well. He had a Cobra Wolf that was complete. It was like $20. I was with Ice Viper. God, I can't resist that. He had the Whirlwind, which is like a dual Gatling gun it's got like a hitch for the vamp. Again, very early, like 83, 84 maybe. Something that I'd never had, that I'd missed over on. He had a Silver Mirage, which I've just bought this year, and was lamenting that I picked it up and it was missing some stuff, that like some really commonly lost stuff, like the handlebars, one of the windshields, and I didn't catch it when I bought it. This guy had a complete one, and it was dirt cheap. I thought, okay, I'm just gonna get rid of my old one and replace it with this one because it has everything. Then he had some other stuff, the like non-toy stuff. He had a set of color forms. If you don't remember color forms, they were kind of big when I was a kid. It's basically like a small rectangle board that had a background, and it would have stickers of characters and from various properties. They had an A-Team one, there's a Pac-Man one. I had a bunch of these as a kid, and you would put these stickers on this background kind of like you're making an image or an action scene, but they're not really stickers. They're almost like I don't know exactly what the magic of color forms is, but you could take them off and on basically an unlimited amount of times. They were pretty fun as a kid, actually. He had a color form set. It was in okay shape. I mean, he had all the stickers for it, but the box was kind of rough. $5. Absolutely. Bring that into my weird world of G.I. Joe memorabilia. And on top of that, he had the puzzle set. The puzzle set that probably, if you know anything about G.I. Joe puzzles, you remember this one. They made 4 G.I. Joe puzzles. Each one has a battle scene in it. And if you got all 4, you could connect them and make one gigantic puzzle. And I actually had one of the 4 of these as a kid. But if you see this art a lot, and in general, if somebody's talking about the G.I. Joe puzzle, it's probably this one. It's pretty well known, I feel like. He had all 4 of them, $5 each. All right, bring it on. And on top of that, he had a separate puzzle, a 5th puzzle that I didn't realize that is one of the later arts. It's used on one of the lunch boxes I have. It has like Falcon's face very prominently pictured in the front. I think the Define is launching in the background. So I went ahead and bought that as well. $5 each for a complete puzzle of that era. Sure, absolutely. So I got all of that from one vendor. And again, the prices on this were crazy cheap. I think I've spoken a little bit about this before, but the shipping on vehicles is outrageous and is really puts a damper in your budget overall. So when I go to an in-person show, vehicles are really one of the first things I'm looking for because the price of shipping is almost enough to get another vehicle, especially if you're looking for bigger stuff. Even Sky Striker size and larger, you pay just a substantial amount. So I picked all that up from that one dude, and I've inspected most of that stuff, and it seems like everything is okay. That Whirlwind that I bought has a issue. It was missing a plate on the top, which I've already replaced. I went on eBay and found one for like $6. I was just like, I'll just go ahead and complete it. But there's also an issue with the way that the gun pivots and doesn't hold. I might have to do some kind of repair work on that. I took it apart and looked at it, and it looks like it's got a lot of stress on the piece that holds it in place. So I don't know. I got to work on that. But anyway, I got all that from one dude, and it was a great deal. And he was a good dude. Like he cut me a good deal. And maybe because I was cleaning him out in terms of, like, I really opened up some spots on his table. All right, why don't you go ahead and talk about the toy department if you're ready, and then I'll tell you what I got from him.
Yeah, so the toy department is, if you haven't heard of the toy department, you need to go on wherever, Facebook, Google, whatever, and go look for the toy department because it is an amazing store. I went there last year and had a blast. But toy department came from Cincinnati or Fairfield, I guess technically, and they set up a booth. It was really cool. I had seen them at Joe Fest when I went there, bought a few things from them there. I knew that they had really great prices, and so I was like, okay, well, I'm definitely going to have to buy some stuff from the toy department. I have to. So I go there, and I'm starting to scoop stuff up, right? Like, I'm grabbing stuff, and I'm just going too crazy, like, in my mind. And then Greg comes over, and he's like, hey, they're cash only. And I was like, man, I don't carry cash on me. I'm not a cash user. I don't like using cash if I can help it. It's just not what I roll with. I would much rather put it on a card, have that, know, hey, look, here's how much I've spent, and do it that way. So I can see it and have that as a visual instead of just being like, well, I think I had this much and now I have this much. So that's this, I think I did, that's too much math for me. I like having that number. So I put most of it back because I was just like, I don't carry that much cash on me. I had a little bit of cash because I had sold some stuff and made cash. So I ended up, the only thing that I bought from the toy department that I remembered that definitely came from the toy department is I've been trying to track one down for a while, a Night Raven. And holy cow, it's awesome. It's so much cooler than I thought it would be. Like, I knew it was going to be cool, but then the dude that was helping me, he was like, hey, we've got, here's the ones that we have. He said, I think, honestly, this is going to be the best one. He was like, take this one. This is the best one. Hooked me up, showed me how to, work the mechanism to open the landing gear. Opened it up and, showed me. And, it is beautiful. It's probably top 5 vehicles for me already. Like, it is so cool. I can't wait to get out and take pictures with it and put different people in everywhere and play with the flight little pod thing that's on there. Such a cool vehicle. And those guys are really cool. I had a chance to talk with them a little bit Friday night and we kind of joked. I'm trying to find some old Star Wars Power of the Force stuff, and they're like, please come take it. Like, we'll get rid of it, So they were having a good time kind of laughing and joking and hanging out. And I got the chance to kind of be there for just a minute. But those guys were great. Toy department, I can't recommend enough. That's another vendor that I'm like, I have no doubts. It's really nice going to these conventions and having this rapport with these vendors because like, if something's wrong, they're going to take care of you. But for the most part, 99% of the time, when you buy from these guys, their stuff's good. And that peace of mind is great because you know you're not getting swindled. And their prices are really competitive.
Yeah, I had not had a lot of interaction with the toy department prior to this show, so I didn't know. I've seen them before, but I had never had a specific business transaction where I was like, this has been a great transaction. And so this was the first time I had bought a lot of stuff from them, and I am pretty pleased with it overall. So yeah, I bought a lot of stuff from the toy department. So basically I approached the toy department, and again, they were like, cash only. so I had to go get some cash. That's fine. I was anticipating that there would be a little bit of that. The toy department also had a lot of like small to mid-range toys that were pretty aggressively priced, in my opinion. And so I was literally just kind of like scooping up stuff that was in my price point that I didn't have, period. So I got an original Skyhawk, something that I did have as a kid, but just didn't survive. And that I had cleaned out when I started getting rid of some stuff that was just too far gone to even hold on to anymore. So I picked up a Patriot, which again is a pretty dumb vehicle, but was part of that like 92 era stuff that I just was not buying vehicles at all. I don't have a special love for this vehicle, although I guess there's nothing exceptionally wrong with it. It's just I think is very forgettable. But I found a great price on it, and I'm trying to get it all, so I went ahead and scooped it up. They had several original hisses, and they fluctuated between like $15 and $25, which I feel like is a pretty good price. And it seems like the deciding factor was how the turret gun works, or if it works at all. And so I ended up picking up kind of a cheaper one. I think I picked up one in the $15 range because I don't have an original hiss. Yes, I know I have 20 hiss tanks and none of them are original, but I want to get an original one of everything. And I thought, well, if I'm going to get one, this is as good as it's going to get. And I could probably mess around with this gun and get it at a functioning level. So I went ahead and picked one of those up. I picked up a vehicle called the Razor Blade, which I mistakenly thought was the Locust at first glance. And then Jaren and I got to looking at it. It's in the box also. I got the box with it. And it's almost like a zip string vehicle where you apply the string and then I guess it like repels and you can have a guy suspended from it. And I don't know that I've ever seen it before. I guess because it's so late in the game. And it is pretty charming, actually. And I think, we don't drop a lot of price points here, but it was $25 in the box. So I felt like that was a pretty good deal. But in my mind, I was like, I'm going to buy a General, and this is a Locust, and they work together. But I'm an idiot because A, I didn't find a General anywhere. B, this isn't a Locust at all. So I picked it up anyway. Speaking of stupid vehicles, I also picked up the Ford America. If you've never seen Ford America, it is a transformer, basically. It looks like a vehicle, but then it's supposed to like convert to look like a piece of terrain, I guess is the best thing I can explain. And it's part of the Sonic Fighters line. And to my surprise, all the sounds and stuff still worked on it. I'll probably get new batteries for it, see if it can even be, I don't know, a little bit more prominent. But I don't know if I've ever seen a Ford America in person, and I was charmed with the stupidity of it, so I went ahead and picked it up. There's actually one thing that I saved for last, and this is the real reason I did business with the toy department, because there's a figure that I've been looking for years at this point.
If you've listened to any of our other con breakdowns or any of our really most of our videos, it seems like this has been something Greg has been talking about since we've been throwing around the idea for Anything Goes.
It probably comes up about every 3 episodes, and because I've been looking for one for so long, and I am at a collecting point where a lot of the stuff that I want is con exclusive figures from cons that I wasn't able to go to, those big box sets, and toy department had a General Mayhem. If you're not familiar with General Mayhem, the Cliff Notes version is that he came with one of the box sets, one of the Joe box sets. I think it's like Iron Grenadiers versus Tiger Force. He's a basically new character. I can't track him down to any existing involvement in anything prior to this. There are 2 versions of him. From an old concept when they were still making vintage figures, they made one. They brought him back in a modern line, and I wanted the modern one because I think it looks better. And General Mayhem is supposed to be like, he was a Russian general. He was exiled for some kind of crimes, and he resurfaced with the name General Mayhem, and he works for Destro as part of the Iron Grenadiers. And he's also like enemies with the October Guard. The October Guard want to bring him in for his crimes. And that's basically the only thing I really know about General Mayhem, because he doesn't really show up in the mass media of the G.I. Joe universe to my knowledge. And baby, those are the characters that I like the best. The characters that are interesting and have just a hint of their background. And then you're basically like, well, why don't you fill in the rest of the details? And which I love to do, but I can't do it until I own the figure. I don't know why I'm like that, but until I own the physical figure, it's very rare for me to like write a story that involves him. And so as soon as I saw him, I was immediately like, well, I'm definitely buying this. And if I could work out a deal to get all these other vehicles, then I will. And I did. So I got a good deal on them. I got a below market price on them. And these are expensive figures. I'm not trying to like puff it out my chest at how much money I spent. It's something that there have been times where I've gone to cons, like if they have him, it might be the only thing I could buy, period. Like it's in my entire budget. And that's how bad and how long I've been seeking this dude. So checking this guy off was a huge deal. I'm not even 100% sure what my new most sought after figure is at this point, because I've been looking for this guy for so long. It probably would be the Metalhead from this set, but the last Kentuckiana, I bought Metalhead because I couldn't find the General Mayhem. So I'm very excited. It's, Destro's like forces are not huge compared to other factions that exist in the G.I. Joe universe. So being able to like expand his like individual regime a little bit, I think is like a big deal. And I think this is a great character to do it. He's a sharp figure, and I'm looking forward to like setting him up somewhere where my daughter can't touch him ever.
That's important. That's imperative.
All of that stuff in the toy department, and those were like all of my my major purchases, with the exception of Todd. I went back to Todd to settle up for the Sky Striker, and ended up also picking up a tactical battle platform that he had. And I have had a tactical battle platform. I do have one, and I bought it 15, 20 years ago. I mean, a very, very long time ago. I bought it with the box, and I guess I just didn't do a lot of homework on it because it's pretty dirty, and it wasn't until I saw Todd's that I was like, wow, my tactical battle platform is missing a lot of stuff. And, Todd only sells complete things. So, and it was so clean. Oh man, it looks so good. But probably one of the best looking pieces that I picked up, period, in terms of like, it looks so much better. Like compared to mine, it's embarrassing. And I didn't even know that there was like tactical battle platform has a little like a little weapons rack, and there are individual guns that go on each rack, which I can only imagine is hard to keep intact. I mean, that's got to be stuff that's lost very easily. So when I saw it, I was like, oh, well, I was so set back by how much different it looked and how clean it was. I was like, I think I want to get this and then just kind of like part out my old one because it's a huge upgrade. And now that I had seen it, knowing how much work would go into finishing the one that I have, it wasn't worth it. Not for what Todd was asking for it, which was a very reasonable price. And also, it's the tactical battle platform, I feel like gets overlooked a lot, but the tactical battle platform is a great playset. I think it gets shoved to the side a little bit because it's obviously intended to be like in water, but it's got a lot going on for it, and I think it's like a great playset. If I'd had it as a kid, I would have gone crazy with it for sure. So anyway, I was like, all right, I'm going to sell up with Todd. I want to get that Sky Striker, which I've already talked about. And I was like, I want to get this also. And I think there was I almost forgot. Todd had a bunch of like little, real, like, I guess what you'd call very small vehicle sets. And they were all bagged up on like a pegboard. And again, that's kind of like my MO, is stuff that's real cheap, real small that I've been missing. And sure enough, he had the jump playset. Well, it's not really a playset, but it's a little jump. It's the backpack with the gun and like a launch pad. And that's that's an 82, 83 vehicle. I don't know what you call it because it's got a platform on it. Anyway, it's something from the 82, 83 era that I didn't have that I recognized right away. The jump is very identifiable. It's a very great piece, and I've never had one before. And it has a little, I didn't even know that it has you like store the jetpack and the gun in a little thing that attaches to the side of the platform. And I was like, all right, I want this also. Todd had a lot of stuff in general that I was just kind of like running around looking at, kind of taking it all in. But those were the things I got, and they were all great. That jump will go. I think a lot of that 82, 83 stuff is made to display well with, say, the original headquarters. It's all real small and kind of like add-ons to it, basically, where like, oh, if you've got a vamp, this will attach to it, or these guns, you could station right outside the headquarters, and it gives a little flavor to it. So getting the jump was like a big deal, something that I really, really wanted. Do you want to talk about the rest of the stuff that you got in addition to your Tomahawk?
Yeah, my best purchase of the day, other than Tomahawk and my other vehicle. So I had the Tomahawk sitting to the side. I had a little piece for one of the asps. I had that sitting to the side. And then as I was sitting there, I was like, man, he's got so many great things. Like, what do I want? So I ended up buying a Dragonfly from him as well, which is really cool. And then me being me and Todd knowing that I am me, and, you know, at some point last year, I think it was after the Winterfest, or I guess that was this year, Todd knew that I was looking for Badgers, so he hooked me up with a good deal on Badgers. So, of course, Todd would bring the Street Fighter Crimson Cruiser to Kentuckiana, and just so happened to point it out to me that it is the same mold as the Badger. So I ended up bringing that home with me as well, and I don't regret it.
If you told me that we would be talking about Badger and Badger molds this much in this show, I don't know if I would have done it. So this came with the box. I remember that.
Yep.
Was it assembled?
Yes.
Did it come with M. Bison?
No.
Okay. Have you taken it out of the box? I'm sure you
yes.
have. And
absolutely.
How do you feel about the Crimson? Every listener we have is like, all right, I'm good.
Well, all right, unsubscribe here.
How do you feel about the Crimson Cruiser compared to the Badger?
I love it.
Do you like it better than the Badger?
I don't know. See, at first I was like, nah, this isn't as good as the Badger. But the bright orange is really, it does it for me. Like I think it's cool. I think I'd still have to keep the Badger above it, but this is a worthy reuse of the excellent Badger mold.
The Badger is just one repaint away from being a pretty great vehicle. If it was like in vamp colors,
yeah,
it would be actually pretty choice.
It's funny because next to my Crimson Cruiser is my Street Striker, which is the Street Fighter vamp.
Yes, I remember that because it has Guile's name over top of the USA flag on the box. So one thing I will remember from it.
So I have both of the Street Striker or Street Fighter vehicles with their boxes displayed proudly together. And, who knows? Maybe I'll have to get the other vehicles from the Street Fighter. Probably not, because I don't think... The only way that I think I would get anything more from Street Fighter is if it was like the Rattler or something like that I thought looked cool. There's not a lot of other vehicles that I'm like, I need it.
The toy department did have the Street Fighter official movie fortress, the Shadowloo headquarters, which is a repaint of one of the later G.I. Joe bases, and that thing is pretty wild, actually. That is probably something I would have in my collection at some point. I've always been very hesitant to dive into both the Street Fighter line and the Mortal Kombat line. There's some debate on whether or not these two lines really belong with the G.I. Joe stuff, and my general experience with it has been, if I run into it and it's cheap, I would pick it up. So I had added like a couple of random figures from both of these to my collection, just like out of the blue. And also, I guess this is worth mentioning, I don't know how or when, but at some point I got a carded Chun-Li in my collection. I do not remember that happening. I do remember getting a Vega because Vega is my favorite Street Fighter character, but I would have to be done with everything else before I started exploring these, I think. I don't think they're really very expensive because, again, most people I don't think they consider them part of the line, but I mean, there is some okay stuff in here. There's definitely some stuff in here that if you took off the Street Fighter branding, it's a perfectly acceptable G.I. Joe vehicle. This Street Striker is a great example. It's got a great color. It's got good weapons.
I take off the top launcher on the Street Striker because it has one of the actual, but it's like, it just looks a little wonky in my opinion.
This was a big thing, but they really felt like they had to have a lot of spring-loaded stuff at this era and beyond this era also, and it really tackies it up. Not as tacky as having an American flag with the word Guile stamped over top of it, but all right. So let's come around the bend and wrap it up. I'm going to talk about some stuff I picked up that I'm not going to be able to credit to any specific vendors because it was either a small transaction or they were a small booth. I ran into this dude that had a Joy Toy figure. I've never bought a Joy Toy figure, even though people in the community seem to rave about them all the time. And I'm not even going to be able to tell you the name of the figure because there's very little English text on the box. I bought it because it was a fair price, and I'll have a figure. By the time this YouTube video goes up, I'll have a picture of it so you can see it. If you're listening to it, the only way I can describe it is that it is a Harley Quinn-esque looking character is what it makes me think of. And in my mind, I was like, I think this character would make a good Dreadnought. I think I could customize this character and like make a new personality. I don't buy figures if I don't think they belong in my G.I. Joe universe. I buy them with the challenge of being like, this is a new character. Who is it going to be? Name them and put them in there. And I also was curious about Joy Toy in general. And it's a very good figure. And it's got a lot of, I mean, it's like screaming personality, right? Just like the character Harley Quinn has got a lot going on. So I picked this up for a fair price. And then this dude was also selling a lot of Complex. If you're not familiar with Complex, it's a diorama environment kit that is made by Raging Spoon, which does a lot of like custom cast parts, and it is like walls and doors that you connect in different ways to make like a little playset of your own kind of design. And they're reversible, so the top might look like an urban setting and the bottom might look like a laboratory, so you can make them look however you want. This dude was selling six complete sets, and in a set you would get one floor, one door, and it was like $100. And if I did the math on it right, that's like close to half of what the retail on it would be. And I don't have any of this before, and I was very curious, so I was like, I'm going to take this. Nobody else had it there, and the more I mess around with it, and I really just pulled a couple panels out to see how it worked, but the more I mess around with it, the more I'm like, this is amazing. It is very cool. It is very expensive because if you want to make anything of even a modest amount of size, you really do need a lot of wall panels. So getting this much at a bulk deal, I say that, but he maybe just was clearancing it out. It was a big deal. Like it's gonna be cool to play around with. I might try to add some more to it over time once I build it and kind of see what's what. Then we met a group of people that run a business called Encased Collectibles, which Jason had just gotten like a custom order from. If you haven't seen it, you should head over to, I think it's on their Twitter, where he has like a custom Steel Brigade case made, and it displays them all with the patches and all this crazy stuff. And these guys essentially make custom cases for anything that you want. You give them the dimensions and the concept, and they'll custom build it, which is pretty impressive actually based on what I saw. But they also had some kind of like pretty cheap pre-built stuff. And what I mean by that is they had 3 options of stuff that interested me specifically. They have a case that's designed for a mint on card figure, which was, if I'm not mistaken, was $20, which I think is a pretty good deal. We're talking like a solid like plexi case. So I picked up one of those. They had a small size box on their display to give you an idea of the size. They had a in-bag mail-away Joseph Colton in it. So roughly anything that you got that was like a mail-away, this was designed for that. I immediately, like an idiot, tried to cram my entire Arctic Commando set in it, which is 3 figures. And it's such a tight fit. It did fit, to my credit. It's such a tight fit, though, you almost can't like see the figures. So I maybe will contact them in the coming year and see if they can design something for me that's just a little bit larger, because I do have that set bagged and I'd like to get it on display. I have no intentions of really opening it at this time, or maybe ever, because it's lasted this long. And then their third option was if you just had a loose figure that you wanted to protect, they had a case that was roughly that size. I bought 3 of those. They were $10 each, because I was immediately like, yeah, buddy, I've got some stuff that I should have put in a protected case for a long time ago. we just got done talking a few weeks back about, I picked up a Tiger Force Outback, the gem of my collection almost. Truly one of the most beautiful things I've ever had. And I put him in there right away. Like, I put all his accessories on and was like, all right, nobody breathe on this. I don't want any dust on it. Like, something that I'll put in an additional display case on top of that, so he'll be protected. But I have plenty of figures like that are long overdue to be properly protected. And I will buy more of these because I need more of these. Specifically, the mint on card case is really nice. It has little grooves where the card like slides into it, so it won't flip and flop back and forth. I put one of my San Diego Comic-Con Sergeant Slaughters in there, but I have lots of other carded figures that are at least valuable enough to, invest $20 in. And then I've got 3 other things, and then I'll throw it back to you, Jaren, and we'll wrap up. Bought a Outback card back because I love Outback, right? I literally was just talking about it. And I'm actually kind of surprised. Roma Collectibles had a lot. I mean, like, tons of card backs, just regular card backs, you know what I mean? Which is not something I normally collect for. I don't seek out. I did reach a certain point in my collecting years where I was like, I'm going to keep everything. And so I started keeping card backs, but I don't have any vintage card backs to my knowledge that aren't actually on card figures. So I saw this Outback card back, and he had, tons and tons of characters, and they were like maybe $5 each. Now, I don't know what the value of a card back is, and I'm not even really sure. I get the interest in it. Obviously, it has, they have amazing art, right? Everybody loves the art from G.I. Joe, or you're an insane person. So I was like, I'm going to get this because I have a complete Outback. I don't have his card back. He's one of my favorite characters. What's $5, right? I just had to figure out a good way to maybe display them together. Anyway, yeah, I picked that up for $5. It's a solid purchase. And the one that I got, doesn't have a lot of damage to the front. If you were a kid and you bought a G.I. Joe, you probably ripped that bad boy off so fast it didn't matter if the entire front of the card went with it. So the integrity of finding a card that has as much of the art intact as possible is always nice, and this one was in very good shape. I get the feeling that Jaren is not going to let me keep talking until I mention that they also had a Tiger Force Outback card back also, and is beautiful. I mean, it is just a redeco of the same art that I bought, and every card back there, we're talking $5 to $8, okay? But this is a Tiger Force Outback. It's an international exclusive. It's an extremely rare card. It's $100. And I looked at it and was like, oh no, this is beautiful. I would love to have this. I could display it with my recently acquired UK Tiger Force Outback. But I could not convince myself to pay that much money for it. Not at that time, at the very least. We love Roma Collectibles. I'm not speaking out of turn on their pricing. It's a very fair price for that card. And I could have even got 20% off that because I have their shirt. I just could not justify paying that for a card back when I, A, didn't have a good way of displaying it, and B, could get the regular card. It's the same exact art for $5. So I settled for that, man. But that's something that's like, maybe if I see it again, it's meant to be, we'll work out a deal for it.
Yeah, I'll make sure to message Aaron and be like, hey, just accidentally bring that card and put it right on top when Greg walks
sure
up.
For $100, he would be happy to set that up because that's easy money for a piece of cardboard. If I guess the long-term goal would be maybe I could get another one of those in-case collectibles, put the card back behind it, and put the sealed figure in front of it. And I'm never going to own a mint on card UK Tiger Force Outback. It's a $600+ figure. I don't even know if I've wanted a mint on card original Outback for a long time, but even that's probably about a $500 purchase at this point. Ooh. So, that's clearly off the table. There's no way. So I found this dude that was beside Lost and Found Toys. He had some pretty interesting stuff, but he didn't really draw me in, except he had one dumb thing that I couldn't take my eyes off of, and that is he had an armor bot. If you're not familiar with the armor bot, we're talking late in the line, Space Force era, right? The stuff that where people are really checking out if they hadn't already. Armor bot is this very large robot, and it lights up, it makes sounds, it has missiles that fire out of one arm, it's got a grabby claw, it's got some Wolverine claws that extends, it pivots, it is buck wild. It has no business being in a G.I. Joe line, and yet here it is. And so this dude had one. It's not perfect. It has one of the arms is like kind of coming apart at the elbow joint, but it's not broken. It just needs some repair. And the spring-loaded part of the missiles don't work, but it does still make noise and it does still light up. And I was able to talk this dude down about $20. It's still kind of expensive because it's end of the run stuff, and end of the run stuff is getting harder and harder to get because I don't think it was made in the same mass quantities that say 85 to 88 stuff is. And this is not something I'd seen in person before. And it's, how I am with dumb G.I. Joe stuff. And this is right up there in big dumb G.I. Joe land. I was like, this thing is insane. I got to pull up the thing that it says real quick. So these are the things that ArmorBot says, and they are absolutely in order of ridiculousness. Check laser.
Check laser.
Check armor.
Check armor.
Fire laser.
Fire laser.
All right, that's the normal stuff. Here's the weird ones. Let's kick bot.
Let's kick bot.
And then lastly, this is your dog meat Cobra.
Your dog meat Cobra.
That's a very personal thing for a robot to say to an enemy.
He's been programmed with feelings.
Anyway, this thing's wild, and I love it. And I'm going to put a little TLC into it and see if I would love to be able to fix that spring-loaded part on the missile launcher. I don't know if that's feasible. I haven't even started looking at, like, any type of repair work for it. But it's great. Will be a great piece of my collection. As soon as I find somewhere appropriate to display it, I mean, like, it is wild. Star Brigade in general is like, I don't have a lot of Star Brigade stuff. And the more I look at it, the more I'm like, this sucks. I love it. So, yeah, this dude had one, like I said, it's in okay shape. And I was able to talk him down a little bit because it had some pieces of it that didn't quite work the way they needed to. So I grabbed it. And then the very last thing I'll talk about, and then Jaren, I'll throw it back to you, is Marauders Task Force was there. And I would be remiss if I didn't speak to how thrilling it always is to interact with those guys. Mm-hmm. First of all, both of the guys that run that booth are great. Very friendly, very knowledgeable about the product in general, and very helpful. Really nice guys. And I'm a geared up Marauders guy, right? It's something that I'm pretty nutty about, and I try to buy every geared up figure that I can get my hands on. But because Jaren was kind enough to pick up the Joe Fest exclusives, and they didn't bring anything exclusively to this show, I was already kind of in a state where I was like, I think I kind of already have all of these. So the only thing I picked up was an additional Red Shadows because I'd like to have a handful of their Red Shadows to go with the Red Shadow. I built some custom Red Shadow stuff as well. And you're seeing more and more Red Shadow stuff that's kind of coming into the mainstream recently, where that's being incorporated into the G.I. Joe line. Black Major appeared in the comic book several years back, and so did RoboSkull. And the Devil's Due run, they had made some Red Shadows characters there as well. So I like the style of Red Shadow stuff. And you can't really get, this is as close to a troop builder for Red Shadows as you're going to get. Because if you buy original Action Force Red Shadows, they're like old Star Wars POA. They don't really mix well with current stuff. So I like trying to get or make modernized versions of Red Shadow stuff to fill out those gaps. And that is everything I can remember that I picked up from the Kentuckiana G.I. Joe show. Jaren, do you have other stuff that you picked up as well?
I've got a few small things, nothing crazy.
Let's have it.
So I did pick up my kid. He's 6. He goes on and on about my Mobat. On and on. He loves how it works, how it moves, and does stuff like that. So I was able to pick one of those up. I don't remember which booth I got it at. I'm wanting to say it was Toy Department, but I would not hold myself to that. And so that was something that I was so excited with. And it was one of those things where I was so excited, and then so just dreadful when I put batteries in and it did not work. And I got it for a really good deal. They were very clear about like, hey, we haven't tested these, we're not sure, that's why they're priced how they are. I was like, that's fine. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then as soon as I got it home and saw how excited he was, I was like, man, I'm gonna have to give him mine if this doesn't work. And so sure enough, put the batteries in, it doesn't work right. It worked a little bit, the motor turned, And so for about an hour, I spent taking it apart and trying to figure out, okay, how do I get this thing back on? And then eventually, together with his little hands being able to hold things in place as I reattached things, we got it, and it works.
That's
And
awesome.
I've never felt more proud or more like a dad in my life than fixing this little Mobat. So that'll probably be the most memorable thing that I bought the whole time, because it was a cool memory, and that's why we got into this as kids, and we made memories with stuff like this. And so getting to pass that on, it was really cool, and I was happy to have that. And then I bought, you had already touched on the Encased Collectibles cases, so I got a couple from them as well. Then I got from Roma, I got Lieutenant Falcon. I got a Bat who is missing just one hand, his regular right hand. I got an Iron Grenadier. I got a Zanzibar. And then I got a few other figures that I don't remember because I had already sorted them back in to all of my figures, and it's impossible to remember which ones I got when. And then the last thing is on Friday night when we were hanging out, somebody walked into the hotel with boxes of classified movie figures, and they were asking, I think it was $25 each, and where I have it pre-ordered, they were $22.99 anyway. So I was like, hey, let's do it. So I canceled my pre-orders, and so now I've got the classified Storm Shadow, Snake Eyes, and Baroness.
Have you opened those figures?
I have. They are really annoying because the Snake Eyes and the Storm Shadow don't have shin cuts, which makes posing as a ninja really difficult. Other than that, I actually really like the figures. I think the off-white looks better on Storm Shadow than the pre-release pictures. It's still not as good as if it was white. I'm not trying to say that. If it was white, it would be better. But this doesn't look bad. I like how it looks in person. The alternate heads are really good. The Henry Golding and Andrew Koji faces look great. And then the Baroness figure is really cool. The posability is pretty good. I wish that we, and I don't want to give them crap because this was a really early on in the line, but it has single jointed elbows for the Baroness, which they work okay. They go a little higher than 90, which is not terrible, but now having Lady J, it makes me want every single female character to have those pinless double jointed elbows. But with that said, they're actually really good figures. If you are on the fence, I would say, if you see them in store, buy them. Because you'll see them, and if you like the way they look in your hand, then you should buy them. And they're really good. Now, if you want to skip it because you don't like it, that's you. I'm not going to say you should do it. For me, I'm really happy that I picked these up.
Okay, is that it? Did we cover it all?
I mean, mostly. Who knows? I've already picked up stuff since then, and it's only been a few days.
I think that wraps it up. Okay, so first of all, thanks so much for indulging us. I know that sometimes it can be a bit of a tedious tear to listen to people just tell you what they bought, but it was a huge weekend for us, and we were both very excited, and we had a great time. And I mean, literally, the stuff that I had in my collection is substantial. So I still am excited to talk about it and how pleased I am to add that stuff to my collection. We'll be back in 2 short weeks, and you know what? Honestly, don't know if we'll be back with comic book stuff or news stuff first. Depends on how much news breaks between now and then. If it's a slow couple of weeks in the news, we'll probably just go back into the comic book kick, because I don't want to. We're so close to being through the first year, and I'd really like to accomplish that hurdle. But if things go buck wild and we have a large news week, we'll take the time to get into that first. You can find us on social media under Anything Joe's Pod. That's on Facebook. That's on Instagram, Twitter. You can find our YouTube channel just under Anything Joe's. You can email us directly to anythingjoespodcast@gmail.com. And by the way, we still have some winners from the previous contest that haven't emailed us their address to claim their prize. You have until the end of this month to do it, so you can get on it. And that's it. Thanks so much for listening today, and we look forward to talking to you in just 2 short weeks, where anything's available for discussion here on Anything Joe's.